Okay, good gentif. So, Max, give me a clue how many we have as they're popping on. Let me see. I think down here somewhere I have, maybe. Oh, I don't even have my friendly neighborhood minion with me, so I can't even fake it. But as of right now, we do not have a minion, not included online and not even including the people who are online. But we're going to start and see what happens. We begin on page, so the numbers of the pages, hopefully the book that you have, the prayer books are here, the Yizkor books are there, and if you want a talit, they're over there. And our numbers are increasing, and this is wonderful. So we're using the new prayer books, especially for festivals and holidays, because the Little Gray Books does not have that at all. So the book that you should be looking at is either the one that says weekdays and festivals, or the one that doesn't specify anything, and it's a fat one. If you're using the one that says weekdays and festivals, which is also online, by the way, at the prayer book page, then there are two page numbers at the bottom of every page. There's the black one and then the bracketed blue one. And the bracketed blue one is the number I'm going to be calling out, because some people are using books that have the whole thing in it, all of it, Shabbat, weekdays and festivals. But we would rather be carrying a book that has only some of it. So these page numbers are good for both. So we begin on page 412 of the bracketed blue numbers. And at the top of the page it says, Shachrit liyom tov, which means, Shachrit means the morning prayer, the morning service, liyom tov, for a holy day or festival. And we are going to start with what it says at the second. Now, this prayer book was intentional about not having responsive readings most of the time, or telling the congregation when to read. They're letting you, either I get to decide or you get to decide. So I'm letting you decide. I'm going to read. I'm going to tell you that we are streaming. How many people are on, Max? 5 people there. And we are close. We're almost a minion, because you have to count me and Max. But we'll see. We'll see what we'll do. We'll get some of this done, and we'll do some of the important things anyway. But we are in the middle of page 412. Then Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women came out after her and danced with timbrels. And Miriam chanted for them, "Sing to Adonai, for God has triumphed gloriously. Horse and driver God hurled into the sea." And I just wanted to point out, that's the official reading that they want us to do in this book. But some people don't remember, because we have great songs about Miriam singing and the women dancing with their timbrels. And they forget that the men sang also. The men had this really long, powerful song that they did first. And we celebrate both of those songs when we do Shabbat Shira, our musical service. But for now, that's the quote they're doing. Turn, please, to page 419 in the bracketed numbers. I like this description, and I hope that you get to think these kinds of things. Now, this is describing a regular weekday service, not a festival service, although they put the description in here anyway, and they put it in Shabbat, but you'll see why this doesn't apply to Shabbat and weekday things. It says, when you see the synagogue from a distance, say, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael, how fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. Upon arriving at the synagogue door, stop momentarily and arrange your clothes properly and say, Va'ani berov chastecha avovetecha, I, through your abundant love, enter your house. Then you enter with dignity and awe, bowing slightly toward the holy ark, and say, Eshtachava el hechal kodshecha beyiratecha. I bow down in awe at your holy temple. And then it says, Adonai ahavti ma'on betecha, I love your temple abode, umekom mishkan kvodecha, the dwelling place of your glory. I'm getting all that on the facing page in case you wonder how I'm making up all that Hebrew. Then walk in a bit, bowing again, say, Va'ani eshtachaveh ve'echra'ah, and I will bow down low. Evracha lifnei Adonai osi, I will bow down low before Adonai, my maker. Then leave some tzedakah for the poor. This is how we know that this part of it isn't about a festival or a Shabbat, because you're not supposed to do financial transactions on those days. We should have done that before the holiday started yesterday. It says, as much as you can afford, and concentrating within yourself, say, Va'ani tefilati lecha. I love that line. Adonai et razon, here I stand ready and willing to perform the commandment, love your neighbor as yourself, then you may pursue the love of God. Elohim berov chastecha aneni be'emet yish'echa. That's not an exact translation of what we just said in the Hebrew, but I really like that. We instead usually ignore all of those little steps as we get to the synagogue, but it's something really powerful about those transitional steps. And we instead sing at the top of 418, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. The other cool fact about that quote is that it was said by someone who wasn't Jewish, who was sent to curse the Jews, but instead he kept blessing the Jews. I continue then on page 157. So I'm going to show you how the prayer book works if you haven't seen this one in action. The right-hand page, the top right, has Hebrew. The prayer book that we use has Hebrew and transliteration next to it for every single thing. There's Hebrew. If there's Hebrew, there's always a transliteration. And then the translation, the direct translation. The top left of the facing page has an interpretation of it, but the chatima, the signature line, is going to be the same sentence. And then the bottom left has another version of the interpretation, usually a freer version of the interpretation. And I sometimes call it the California interpretation. Sometimes it's really way out there, and you'll see what I mean. But what I'm going to suggest that we do from this is the blessing that you say for successful bodily experiences, if you go to the bathroom successfully, if you know that your body is working. But I'm going to suggest we read this interpretive version on the top of page 421 today. My God, I thank you for my life, body, and soul, for my name, my gender, my way of thinking and speaking. Help me realize that I am something new, someone who never existed before, someone original and unique in the world. For if there had ever been someone like me, there would have been no need for me to exist. I love starting my day thinking about things like that. The Chatima, the signature line, is Baruch Ata Adonai, Rofeh Chol Basar Umafli La'asot. The translation is on the bottom of 420, where it says, Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. We continue with our morning prayers, and again I'm going to turn to page 423, the top left. We're just, for the most part, going to keep turning pages from one page to the next. The prayer book is called Siddur in Hebrew, which means order, like the Seder, the Passover Seder. For the most part, we're just going from one page to the next. The complicated thing about this prayer book is that sometimes we have to choose which of the ones we're doing. We don't have to do all four of the options. We kind of only have to do one. And sometimes we choose to do two, the Hebrew and a translation or interpretation. But I would like to turn to page 423. Let our souls evolve higher, from instinct to inspiration, from haughtiness to holiness, selfishness to service, to join with the soul of souls, the infinite one. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch Ata Adonai, asher biyado, nefesh kol chai, veruach kol basar ish. Then we get to one of my favorite parts of the service, the mornings. Starting at 424 are the everyday miracles. The way they've laid out this page, you see the Hebrew, it's usually a one-sentence prayer, blessing, and the translation is below it. Transliteration again is on the left. And then they have these little inspirational words toward the right, which I agree with sometimes and I don't agree with sometimes, but what you see is not always the only way to interpret what's happening in that prayer. You can see it in other ways. And this is the section that we use this every Shabbat morning, and most of the time this takes us the longest amount of time to get through, because we look at it and we say, well, this week, how did this one strike us? And you'll see what I mean. Our tradition lately has been that we chant the first 6 words in Hebrew, and we chant the rest of the blessing, which is the part that changes each time, in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sechvivina lavchin ben yom hu. Sorry, I didn't even do what I said I was going to do, because, forgive me for a moment, I just realized I am not wearing my kippah. I rarely say blessings without a kippah on. And my kippah should be right here. Forgive me for a second. Did everybody say hi to each other? Max, what's our number? Okay. So we don't have a minion. I did find my minion, but it's not going to count much this time. So we'll still do a modified service today. But he's going to have to help me out today. So we're going to start again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. So they're saying it's about awakening. I'm saying that especially during the pandemic, it's really hard sometimes to know the difference between day and night. Our days are kind of topsy-turvy. And we're here today for Yizkor, which means that we have all experienced a time in our world where everything is topsy-turvy also. So it's as a Memorial Day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. So their inspiration is about for the ability to stretch. I always thought of captive as prisoners of war. And then we were captive during the pandemic, and I thought of it that way. And now I also think of it as what's going on in Ukraine. I think of it as the times when people were oppressed. I'm able to think of many different ways of being captive, and I'm grateful to God for giving the captive hope and for freeing the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen. We turn the page. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. We are more and more aware these days of how storms are getting more severe, and there's more water coming over the earth, and how they're telling us that polar caps are melting and things like that, and worrying more about waters coming over the earth in ways they shouldn't. So God, please put it back where the way they belong and help us do whatever it takes to make that work. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes and slumber from the eyelids. I smile every time I think of that one, because that's the one where on Saturday mornings, every single week, after a certain point in his life, Abri Khan, Zechrono Livracha, would ask, what's the difference between sleep from the eyes and slumber from the eyelids? And every single time I would try to come up with a different answer. And then at some point I realized I could recycle some of my answers, but I think about that all the time, and it reminds me of him. On page 428, the top of the page is one of my all-time favorite blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. And it says who made me in the image of God. It doesn't say who made us. A lot of times blessings or commandments are for everyone. And this one, it's a personal kind of thing, except it's personal in a way that shows that if I am in the image of God, everyone I encounter is in the image of God. And it changes the way I react with the people that I come in contact with all day long. Always recognizing there's a spark in them that's divine. And it makes me glad to be part of humanity, even on days when sometimes I'm not so glad. So this next one, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free. So on the one in the middle of the page, the next one, you'll notice that in Hebrew it says Sha'asani Yisrael, who made me Israel. Israel is a word that's packed with a lot of important information. It means to struggle with God and survive. And if you've ever struggled with God, if you've ever said, God, what's going on? Why is this happening? Or why me? Or why them? Or whatever. Or if you sometimes wonder about God, or if you don't ever challenge God, but you realize that you're part of something that's bigger than you. So, for example, one of the things we realized last week is that the word Yisrael, if you take it as initials, you'll see that every one of the matriarchs and patriarchs are in that. So Yud is Yitzchak. So if we start at the beginning, you'll see Avraham is in the Aleph, and then Sarah, his wife, is in the Sin. And then Yitzchak, his son, their son, is in the Yud. And then he was married to Rivka, which is the Resh. And then they had Jacob, Yaakov, which is the Yud again. And Yaakov was married to Rachel and Leah. So if you take all of the first letters of the names of all of the matriarchs and patriarchs, they're all in here. So we also recognize that we're part of something bigger than us. Plus, almost every single time we have a service, it is not just Jewish people. And this is an uncomfortable thing to say if you're not Jewish. So we have always changed the interpretation to be more reflective of what the Hebrew actually says. So instead of saying, who has made me a Jew, and some people may want to say that, we say, who's made me part of Israel. Because we have found that everyone who worships with us, who comes, whatever their background, they still feel like they're a part of Israel. And they feel included in this. So that's what our translation is. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a part of Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. On page 430 is another part of the morning blessings, but it starts a new kind of way of thinking. This is the blessing that you say before you study Torah, which means any kind of learning. In Hebrew we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. So let's take a look. These are all, once you say that blessing, these are all, on the next few pages, are things that are interpretations or lessons that you could learn. So the one that I picked for the holidays is page 432. And I sing the first line, but then we read the rest in English. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, ve'elu hem. And you could do the whole thing in Hebrew, but I choose to do the rest in English. This is from the Talmud, and it says, and you may join me if you'd like, these are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. V'talmud Torah keneged kulam, but the study of Torah encompasses them all. So now you've studied some Torah. Max, number? So I am going to suggest that we skip to a section. I was going to sing a new song for you, but that's okay. I'm going to suggest that because we did not get a minion for this section, I'm going to point us to a few things, a few extra things. On page 570, we're going to skip. We are in a period called the Omer. The Omer, I'm going to give you the description. Let's see. The 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot is known as the Omer period, And Omer, the word means sheaf, was an ancient measure of grain and refers to the barley offering brought to the temple starting on the second day of Passover. Starting on that day, the Torah says, you shall count off 7 weeks. This is a Torah command. Count 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. The festival of Shavuot is observed on the 50th day. The counting of the Omer, also called Sfirat HaOmer, lasts 49 days, takes place at night. You start on the second night of Passover. If you forget to count at night, you can count in the day, but you don't say the blessing. The rabbis determined that if you forget more than one day, you do not say the blessing anymore that year, because you will not have fulfilled the commandment to count all 49 days, all 7 weeks. The count is stated in days and in weeks, or weeks and in days, and then weeks and days. So that's an example. So today actually is the 6th day. Shabbat is the 7th day. And we would not say the blessing for that, potentially, in the morning, although this rabbi has had a tradition of saying the blessing anytime you're fulfilling a blessing. But I just wanted to point that out, and you are welcome to continue to count, but since we're together anyway. The Yizkor service starts on page 574 in our prayer books. I wanted to point out you can find a Yizkor service online. There's a Yizkor page that shows the names of the people who have died since Rosh Hashanah, since Yom Kippur, or Rosh Hashanah this year, 5782. These are the names of the deaths, and I will read those out too. But on the inside, the first page, there's the Yizkor prayer in here, and then there are memorial prayers toward the back. So this can be a complete Yizkor service for you if you need one, but we're going to take a look at what's in this book. On page 574, the first prayer is, Adonai ma'adam v'teda'ehu, ben enosh v'techashvehu. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood where we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Adonai, you redeem the soul of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. Then we have on page 575 one of our favorite readings about this. I always like this one. It reminds me of, just makes me think of a whole lifetime and how much is packed into it. And I wanted to point out before we continue, there are 4 times of the year that we do Yizkor. So on Yom Kippur, which is the first time of the year, but then at the end of Passover, and then on Shavuot, which is in 7 weeks, as we just said, 6 weeks from now, and then the last day of Sukkot. Those are the 4 times during the year that we do a Yizkor official memorial service. If you looked outside, you'd see that all the lights are lit, and there's a tradition by some to light a Yizkor candle. So that would have been lit before we lit our Yom Tov candles last night, and all that information's on our website as well. But we're on page 575. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey from birth to death to life everlasting. On page 576, we have an interesting interpretation of Psalm 23 in the English. Many people like hearing the these and thous when we do this one normally, but I think you might appreciate this. A Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I lack nothing. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me to water in places of repose. God renews my life. God guides me in right paths as befits God's name. Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai for many long years. I'd love to hear what you think about that interpretation. We will continue on page 580. The top paragraph is the same as what we have on the inside cover, essentially, which is the Yizkor prayer that we say silently as we remember the people that we were connected to. When that's finished, we will continue together. We'll continue at the bottom of page 580. May God remember forever our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel who gave their lives for sanctification of the divine name. May they be at one with the one who is life eternal. May the beauty of their lives shine forevermore, and may my life always bring honor to their memory. We continue on the next page on 582. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamsei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim uteorim, kezohar harakia, mazhirim lenishmat yikirenu shalchu leolamam. Bal harachamim, yastirem beseter knafav leolamim, v'yitzuro b'tzuro chayim et nishmatam. Adonai hu nachlatam. V'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam, v'nomar amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved ones who have entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings, secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours, they will rest in peace. Amen. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as they live, we too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. We are going to continue then on page, let's see, we have to, this goes a little bit inside and outside. Page 599. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. Those who died in the past 30 days include Claire Maisel and Bobby Jean Gray. Those who died and those who were the congregants' parents who died within the past year, we remember Ron Riley, Fred Phillips, Carl Aaron, Carolyn Talbert, and Marcia Katzenstein. And those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own, those for whom we're observing Yizkor today, include Carl Aaron, Bobby Jean Gray, Marcia Katzenstein, Claire Gompertz Maisel, Ethel Hyman Schnitt, and Carolyn Talbert. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for blessing. And because we will have a minyan online combined with those who are here today, if it is your custom to do so, we rise for the Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shemei Rabbah mivarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dukudsha barichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. You may be seated. I picked a song to sing. Someone wise said that it's helpful for us to have a song after we say Kaddish. So this one, because today the primary reason was coming together for end of Passover and Yizkor, page 643. This one I think of, it gives me, I have a different interpretation every time I think about it. But on page 643, there's a song, Gesher Tsar Ma'od. It says that the whole world is like a narrow bridge, and the important thing is not to be afraid. And I feel like sometimes when we're in mourning, it feels like everything has changed, that we fell off that bridge. Sometimes when the world is harsh, we feel like we're on a narrow bridge. But the truth is, even though it's sometimes like a narrow bridge, we can stay on it. Don't be afraid. Don't look down. Keep looking forward, and we can get there. So the song goes like this. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo לפחד, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. Hope that the end of your Passover is wonderful and blessed. Tonight we have a guest here. We're using the ISJL curriculum, the Institute of Southern Jewish Life curriculum, and they've changed the name. It used to be called the Education Fellow, but the Program Associate. We are obligated to have a Program Associate visit 3 times during the year, and we're obligated to go to their conference every year. So this year, again, their conference, it's going to be in June, and it's going to be virtual again, and that means that if you'd like to attend, let us know, and you can sign up for it, and you can attend. But our ISJL Program Associate is going to be here this weekend. She's coming tonight to B'nai Zion and then going to Agudath Achim. She's going to be online with us for our Zoom Torah study, and she sent a really cool alternative to the Torah study instead of talking about a Torah portion tomorrow, because some people are still observing Passover until tomorrow night. Here we finish tonight. It's the end of the 7 days, so our tradition here is the 7th day. So it's not really Passover for us anymore tomorrow, but it's going to mess up our Torah schedule if we jump to something else tomorrow. But she's got this very cool Women in Passover thing tomorrow, so 9:45 Torah study, we'll be working on that. And then at 11 o'clock she'll join us for the service, and she's got a couple songs she wants to sing for us, so that's lovely. There's more events that she's doing with the religious school and the faculty for the rest of the weekend, and we always love that. There's a lot of enthusiasm when they come, when the program associates come, and that's this weekend. Next weekend, this week also, by the way, for the past few years, we've done a thing where we shred anything you need shredded, and I mean anything. It's everything from paper, which is the obvious, to things like hard drives and CDs and whatever your backups are. So if you want it, the shredding truck will be here again this week. We request a donation to help us it costs us something to have the truck come, and anything above what it costs us goes to our safety and security, shredding confidential stuff, safety and security fund. So that helps, and we would request that you bring your things by Wednesday, the end of Wednesday. It gets locked up. If you bring it before then, it gets locked up in a special room that here, so it stays confidential. But that's this week. So Wednesday, the 27th is the deadline. Next Sunday, May 1st, at 3 p.m. is our annual, I think it's the 39th annual Holocaust Remembrance Service for the Shreveport-Bossier City area. Once again, we will have a service where we all get to worship together. We'll be at Broadmoor United Methodist Church again, which is right on Uri Drive, not far from here. They're offering refreshments afterwards because we finally get to visit with each other again afterwards. The high school and the junior high have competitions. The middle school have competitions for art and literature. This year, the middle school still is thinking about heroes during the Shoah, during the Holocaust. But the high school has a very powerful prompt, and you can see it all online at holocaustremembranceservice.org. But they, this year, have more competitions than ever. Not only do they have an essay, they also have poetry and short story and art and music. There was a video option, but nobody submitted a video this year, so we may not do that again. But each of these comes with an award. So the middle school, $200 for first place, $100 for second place, and $50 for third place. High school, it's $400, $200, and $100, and each of these categories has winners. And so we hope that you come. You will get to find out who the winners are. There's also supposed to be a program, and I'm going to let you know because you showed up. We've been having a hard time finding a program. We really want to have survivors or eyewitnesses. Even if today we could do that virtually and people won't blink as much about if we've got them on a Zoom on the big screen or something there. But every time we've signed someone up, something has come up. They've gotten sick. They're all in their 90s, and it's not easy for us to be able to schedule these things. So we will have a program, but I can't promise you what it is yet, and I feel bad about that. But that's next Sunday, May 1st, from 3 to 4. We try to keep it to an hour. There will be prayers, there will be music. We'll have 11 plus one, I think, candle lighters for the 11 million people who died during the Shoah and the Holocaust and World War II, and then someone representing what happens in modern times when there's still oppression. So I hope you come. And then Sunday at 1 o'clock, I don't know if you've known that I've been doing this About Faith radio show every other Sunday at 1 o'clock on Red River Radio. And this week it's going to be airing, and it's about the Holocaust, and it's about we're going to talk about the service as well. And then in 2 weeks it'll be something a lot happier. And I want to remind you to make reservations to attend. If you're a member, make reservations to attend the congregational annual meeting and brunch, 10:30 on Sunday, May 15th. That's just in a few weeks. There's no charge for the brunch, but we really want to know how many people are coming. So please let us know if you think you're coming, and I hope you're coming. We will do a picture. We have to vote for new members, new board members. It's none of you this time, and so that's helping. But we have great candidates this year. You should have gotten your email already. And Kathy and her board we get to thank Kathy for her service as president during arguably the hardest 2 years that we have seen in a very, 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 very long time. So I hope that you come for that. We have people who are moving away we want to say thank you to, and other things. But that's May 15th. And we have this cool thing happening on May 16th that I hope that you know about. We have a comedian coming that evening at 7 o'clock. We'll serve dessert, and he's fun. There's a link to his website. We saw him on Zoom. He did a program for us of all the jokes that he can't tell in person, which was kind of fun. And he's was an American guy who moved to Israel and served in the Israeli armed forces, so he was telling jokes about what that was like. But and he was supposed to originally come as the program for Israel Independence Day, but he's not now due to circumstances beyond our control. So I don't know if he's doing Israeli humor or just Jewish humor or what, but he's a funny guy, and it's free to you. If he comes, you'll get dessert, and you'll see some wonderful entertainment. It'll be here in Lefkowitz Hall. And those are my announcements just for the next couple of weeks, and there's more. Confirmation is the beginning of June, and then there's a bat mitzvah, and never ending. But if you'd please rise, we can bless each other. Thanks for being here. I thought it was just going to be me and Max, and you can't even see Max. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you. May God protect you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'choneka. May the light of God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face be lifted up to you. May God grant you peace. Good gentif. Hope to see you soon. We're still